Hey now, we are getting over, and I am the Silver King, Adam Silverstein, here to lead you through these hard times. With a special NXT edition of your favorite professional wrestling podcast. That's right, Getting Over is back on a Wednesday for the first time in a long time to bring you this special NXT episode. Not only will we break down this past week on NXT television, the Go Home show, we will also provide you with an ultimate preview for NXT Stand and Deliver, operating 2 weeks ahead of WWE WrestleMania 42 for the first time ever. But not only that, former NXT champion, former North American champion, current challenger for the NXT championship, Ricky Saints, is joining the show for the first time. We spoke earlier on Wednesday, had a fantastic conversation. I cannot wait for all of you to hear it. As we get into today's show, allow the Silver King off the top to remind you that the Getting Over Wrestling podcast
is all about the five.
So head over to Apple Podcasts and Spotify, leave a 5-star rating on Apple, take a little extra time, leave a 5-star written review. If you do, we will read it live right here on the show. Don't forget to follow us on social media at Getting Overcast on Twitter and Blue Sky. You get episode drops, news, analysis, highlights. You can send in questions and comments for the show on YouTube. You can not only listen to the show, you can watch full-length video interviews. And our interview with Ricky Saints will be posted on Thursday. So keep your eyes out for that. No matter where you want to follow us, make sure you do it at Getting Overcast. We have so much to cover today, and frankly, with an ultimate preview ahead for NXT Stand and Deliver, I'm going to want to pontificate plenty about those matches, the card order, the chosen main event. It's going to be a lot of conversing here on the Getting Over Wrestling podcast, so let's not waste any further time getting into it. This is the order of operations for today's show. We're going to kick off with a breakdown of everything that happened on NXT TV that is not directly tied into the ultimate preview. And there was plenty for us to discuss. Then we're going to take a break right in the middle of the show. You're going to have the opportunity to listen to the Silver King go one-on-one with absolute Ricky Saints. And the main event of this episode will indeed be your NXT Stand and Deliver ultimate preview. You're not going to want to miss a second of any of it. Just for some housekeeping reasons, let me go over our schedule this week. Already in your podcast feed is our full WWE episode, a detailed breakdown of Raw and SmackDown. There are 3 SmackDowns and 2 Raws remaining until WWE WrestleMania 42. Obviously, you're listening to the NXT show right now. We'll be back on Thursday. Vintage Chris Vanini returns. He will give his takes on the week in WWE. We will also break down the week in AEW. And then on Saturday, as soon as NXT Stand and Deliver goes off the air, we will have, of course, your NXT Stand and Deliver instant analysis, a 4-episode week right here on the Getting Over Wrestling podcast. You don't want to miss any of it. As I said, let's get started with NXT Live from the theater at Madison Square Garden on Tuesday night. JC Jane backstage commiserated with Fatal Influence about the number 1 contendership main event, only for Izzy Dame to interrupt her, again speaking way too fast. I believe only saying that everyone wants JC's title, which, no shit. Like, why did you need to say that? What was the purpose of this segment? Why was Izzy involved in it? I was extremely confused by that. Then we had Kendall Gray against Lola Vice for the number 1 contendership. This main evented the show. Kendall was on top early before Lola ensured we all remembered that she is indeed a Latina. The crowd was firmly behind Gray, who twice nearly got Vice into an armbar, only to take a spinning back fist that flung her out of the ring. Influence came down the ramp to distract, only for Kendall to avoid Lola, who hip attacked the steel steps. When Gray flew at Vice back inside, she got taken down with an anti-air roundhouse kick to the gut. Kendall answered with her feint spinning elbow, which landed even better than it did last week. Lola was in the middle of a kick barrage when Kendall caught her ankle clean, dragging her into the middle of the ring for an ankle lock submission. After a double leg takedown, Lola locked Kendall in a guillotine, but Gray refused to go down. Time and again, fighting out of it, standing up, ultimately flipping her over in a fisherman suplex. Lola then bridged her body to lock in the guillotine even tighter. Kendall gets the 1, 2, 3, but a second referee outside the ring who came down due to influence noticed Gray tapping exactly as the referee hit 3, literally as his hand was coming down. So Shawn Michaels comes out with the referees, all the women arguing about who won the match, and NXT goes off the air.
No, don't like that.
The obvious presumption being a triple threat for Stand and Deliver. But even as we tape the show now, April Fool's Day, no jokes here, I promise, we don't know who will be challenging JC Jane for the NXT Championship on that show. Now, I don't mind the booking in theory, but when you don't have another TV show before your premium live event, you should not be ending a go-home show with confusion and a question mark when it comes to deciding a number one contender when you don't even have a individual one-on-one feud that you've built to this point. I mean, we're not taping this on Tuesday night. This is 21 hours after this show went off the air. Nothing has been announced. That is ridiculous. Why not ensure there were another 90 seconds of TV time built in? That way you could make the announcement as an exclamation point to end the program. Why are we now nearly 24 hours from it and nothing has been announced even? It shouldn't take that long to make a decision. It was super unsatisfying, unnecessarily so. Further, if you are about to crown Kendall as your new champion, that's not a guarantee now. I still feel like it's a likelihood. Why the hell are you having her tap out to Lola in the final match before she makes that challenge? To set up a clear-cut number one contender? There are many better ways to do that than potentially making your new champion look a bit weak on the go-home. Now, that said, the guillotine that Vice locked in, that was not weak at all. And when Gray flipped over, it created like kayfabe leverage on her windpipe. It literally made it a last gasp situation. So I found the finish to be logical and extremely well executed. Don't get that twisted. Dusty Rhodes would be proud of that, but that does not mean I agreed with it. Kendall looked like an absolute beast, refusing to go down to a guillotine that was fully locked in by a larger, stronger woman. The timing of the tap out was perfection. Gray again proved during this match she is the whole effing package. And for that reason, it's rather infuriating that she seems not to be getting JC one-on-one. Now, I'll put a pin in this because we still have the Ultimate Preview coming up later. Don't want to move on, though, without praising Lola. This was her best match period in WWE. She has improved so much over the last year, deserves a ton of credit. I don't know if that's because she went down to AAA, if it's just experience and effort and time. 4 stars, A-. I might have been able to go higher with a clean finish. I'm not even downgrading it that much because I love the execution of what they did. I just disagree with the booking. And I'm not going to downgrade a match because I disagree with the booking. Los Americanos fought Birthright in a number one contendership for the tag team titles. Fun spot early where Stax was dancing with Ariana Grace ringside, so Bravo took him out and then danced with her himself. Uriah Connors hit a nice springboard stunner. Rayo delivered a X-Plex looking like classic, I don't know, like NXT UK Pete Dunne or something like that. I wish he was doing a lot more than producing these days. A double distraction led to Bravo eating a Lexus King cane to the back of his neck, plus a Shining Wizard. That was a false finish. Shiloh Hill jumped out of the crowd with a steel chair to chase away all the extras backstage. That left the 4 competitors. Connors got a false finish on a Swanton Bomb before El Grande Americano ran in to distract. In an even funnier moment, Rayo and Bravo each grabbed metal plates to hand to the other for mask loading purposes. But rather than pause and realize, oh, we both have plates, we'll just use our own, they still exchanged them. It was a terrific bit. Bravo ultimately caught Uriah with a flying headbutt for the 1, 2, 3, which was chanted by the New York crowd. 1, 2, 3. Awesome work by them. One of 2 matches on the show Tuesday night that completely over-delivered. The work between these guys was strong, but it was all the additional elements that allowed it to sing. Americanos were obviously not planned for this title match, but substituting them in was a stroke of genius, just considering how the crowd has responded every single time they've been out there. This was a solid B-level match. Hank and Tank commiserated with Ilya LaFleur, Sean Legacy, and Eli Knight about all being left off the Stand and Deliver card. LaFleur revealed that he tore a ligament in his shoulder. He's going to be out for 6 months, forcing him to relinquish the Speed title that should, to this point, we've said it many times, just be retired. Ren Sinclair came through to be a shoulder to cry on and maybe even riz up LaFleur a little bit. before Hill interrupted with far too much energy for the room. The guys told him it was the wrong time to be hype, but he said he had an idea about Stand and Deliver. Unbelievable that LaFleur got injured at an NXT live event less than 2 months after debuting. Talk about absolutely terrible luck. This speed stuff, it continues to hurt the show, particularly considering the concept involves super short matches and endless tournaments. Why does this still exist? I need someone to explain it to me. Someone in WWE, off the record. I don't care. Call me, email me, DM us on social media. Tell me why WWE speed still exists, please. Robert Stone later said that these 5 healthy faces would fight Birthright in a 10-person mixed tag team match on the kickoff show to Stand and Deliver. Fair enough. They're getting the young people on the show that they wanted to. Ren Sinclair gets a match at a PLE.
I like it. I like it a lot.
Might be a pre-show, still a step in the right direction. So fair enough for everyone involved here. Jada Parker fought Kalani Jordan. Jada's new music is a clear upgrade, but it always bothers me when wrestling companies include natural fan chants in the theme itself. And it seemed like they did that at the intro for Jada. I hate the CEO chants for Mercedes Moné and AEW. I hated when I think it was WWE, maybe WCW at the end of the run. It added Goldberg chants to Goldberg's theme to like encourage the crowd to do it and make it sound louder. It doesn't work. Fans chant Miss Parker. They don't need to be egged on to do it. Meanwhile, Lonnie, still years later, cannot time her hand clap with the clap on her entrance. I don't understand why that is so difficult. Parker hit the teardrop only to take a huge pump kick when turning around after doing her emote. Jordan followed with a frog splash. She took a full release avalanche German suplex that nearly didn't get all the way around, plus Hypnotic and a lift up Liger bomb called Deja Vu with Jada prevailing clean. That's the best that Parker has looked in the ring since returning. Maybe in her career, close to it, super crisp. Lonnie played a role in that as well, selling extremely well. It does seem like Miss Parker is finally starting to put it all together. And while I had no issue with her using Hypnotic as her finisher, considering, what she brings to the table, it's tough to argue that Deja Vu is not better for her in the long term. But shouldn't it be called Jada View? Like, isn't that the purpose of using the name? Ideally, she uses both moves and finishes matches differently. Definitely see her being elevated up the women's division, at least being North American champion sooner than later. Maybe even NXT champion a year from now at Stand and Deliver. Just going to put that out there. Parker, she's never going to be a top tier worker. We have never said that she would be. But look at Trick Williams. She doesn't need to be that. She doesn't have to be a work rate person. Just work clean, show a ton of charisma, speak well on the mic. She does all those. Lonnie attacked Jada backstage, ramming a garbage can into her body on the ground before getting pulled off by officials. Frustrating this is going to get rematched, but you do need decent storylines coming out of a tentpole PLE. So if they do like a best of 3 and book it that way, it could actually work. Lonnie, by the way, she continues to make incremental improvements. You can tell. I'm just waiting for that switch to fully flip where she goes all the way there. That hasn't happened yet. I have been wondering whether it will, but she's getting closer and closer. Mike Santana and Out the Mud fought Dark State. This opened the show. Santana got a great reaction. During the match, commentary opined that Dark State may need a singular leader, explaining why it should be Dion Lennox. Lucian Price had a great hot tag, just straight manhandling all 3 heels. Santana finally got in, hitting a rolling cutter, double tope suicida, and frog splash for a false finish. The crowd was going nuts for him at this point. Dark State landed an avalanche version of their tandem powerbomb finisher for a broken fall. Santana caught Saquon Sugars with a Death Valley driver, hitting spin the block and taking out the other Dark State members before OTM hit their rocking backdrop finisher, whatever you want to call that, for the win. Why Sugars always has to take the fall when Osiris Griffin is the weak link, I will never understand. Though, you know what? I guess it's because he sells better. So maybe I do understand. This match completely over-delivered. The fans were super hot. It's possible that Santana gave some rub to OTM coming off of this. They worked exceedingly well as a trio. I would not mind seeing them run it back in similar situations going forward. The crowd was hotter for Santana than I ever could have imagined. He might have gotten the biggest pop and most sustained cheers on the entire show. Good for him. That arrow was pointing up massively. Lennox flipped out backstage later. Given he's lost nearly every opportunity put in front of him to this point, he promised to ensure nobody forgets the threat they pose at Stand and Deliver, whatever the hell that means. There's the pre-show match. Maybe they get involved in that or the tag team title bout, but I don't know what Dark State's going to do on that show that makes sense. Then we had Jasper Troy against Keanu Carver. Josh Briggs was a special guest referee. Troy lumbered out there looking sloppy in a t-shirt, still clanking the stupid effing chains around. 2 minutes into the match, a planted fan screamed at Carver that he sucks, so Keanu grabbed him by the shirt, had to be stopped by Josh. When he got distracted threatening the commentators, Jasper chokeslammed him through the announce table and hit Black Hose Slam for a surprise false finish. Troy blamed Briggs for his count, so Josh booted him in the face, allowing Carver to deliver a pounce and a running power slam for the win. Carver then demanded Briggs raise his arm, so Briggs feigned doing so and delivered a huge lariat to stand tall at the end. I didn't expect too much. This still underdelivered. These guys are not ready for prime time. It is as simple as that. Now, sure.
Oh, we got two big meaty men bumping me tonight.
And as we say,
Big meaty men slapping me. That's what I want.
but they barely got to slap meat. Troy is impossible to buy as a legitimate wrestler. Carver is not allowed to do anything truly impressive. The guy is running the most basic moves I have ever seen for someone called up to NXT. I didn't mind the creative or the finish to build a presumed triple threat match that was later announced for next week, by the way. But this should have been a brawl segment if it was not going to last longer than 3 minutes. They fight before the bell, beat the crap out of each other around the ring. The match gets thrown out. You do the stuff with the fan, the whole 9 yards, Josh Briggs, all of that. Jasper really looked like he had something during LFG, but right now, I just do not see the buy-in from him, nor does it appear like NXT is putting him in any position to succeed. Because if they were, he wouldn't be clanking the chains around. He wouldn't be out there lumbering around. He wouldn't be wearing a t-shirt looking sloppy like he does. I don't understand what they're doing with Jasper Troy. I don't understand why they pushed him on to NXT so quickly, but yeah, that's what's happening right now. So yeah, that was the full breakdown of NXT stuff that we did not want to discuss until the NXT Stand and Deliver Ultimate Preview. That is coming on the other side of our one-on-one conversation with Ricky Saints. Before we get to that, Silver King does need to remind you here at Getting Over.
I happen to love the number 5.
And I hope you do as well. For $5 a month or $50 for the year, you can become an official Getting Overhead. Just visit buymeacoffee.com/gettingover. Sign up. You will get bonus audio, the fastest 5 minutes in professional wrestling, instant reactions to every major show, and exclusive news analysis posts every week. We have taken our foot off the gas a little this week because we're taping so many additional episodes, but any normal week, you get all of that content and more. Please support us, especially on the road through WrestleMania 42. buymeacoffee.com/gettingover. That said, it is officially time for us to welcome Ricky Saints to the show. We had an incredible conversation earlier Wednesday, did not just speak about his career, wound up getting into an in-depth conversation to some degree about New Orleans, Louisiana, which all of you listening to the show know is, I don't want to say dear to my heart because I've never lived there and I'm not from there, but every time I visit, I come away just feeling like a different person. And I seriously recommend everyone vacation there or visit for an extended period of time if you have the means and opportunity. But that's another story for later in the show. Allow the Silver King to welcome former North American and NXT champion Ricky Saints to the program. We will be back on the other side with your NXT Stand and Deliver Ultimate Preview. Thrilled to welcome Ricky Saints to the show for the first time. You can catch Ricky challenging for the NXT Championship at NXT Stand and Deliver live this Saturday, April 4th, from the Factory at the District in St. Louis and airing live YouTube in the United States, Netflix internationally. Ricky, man, great to have you here, especially ahead of such a big show. You know, 1 year ago today, actually, 5 weeks into signing with WWE, you beat Shawn Spears to win your first title. Looking back on that version of Ricky Saints, still finding his footing in WWE a little bit, adjusting to new surroundings, what would you say to yourself back then if you had the opportunity now, 12 months later?
Oh man, I get this question quite a bit, and I don't think there's anything I would say differently. If anything, I would definitely be like, it only gets crazier and better from here. It really does. And in the short span of time that I've been here, there's so much that has happened and so much that I've accomplished that it's kind of crazy to think about looking back at it. So I wouldn't, there isn't anything that I would necessarily say to change anything, but maybe more so of a like, hey, Here's what you got to look forward to next.
Yeah, it was more from the standpoint, you're starting it's a job at the end of the day, right? Like you're going to a new workplace with new people. You haven't worked with the trainers, the other wrestlers, some of them, obviously Spears and a couple guys you did. But I was wondering if there was like nervousness kind of those first few weeks, especially coming so quickly, right? Like I think if memory serves, you didn't necessarily know you were going to start exactly when you did, right?
Yeah. I don't know if there was ever I don't know if I remember feeling nervous really more than like this pressure for myself to just perform to the highest level that I can. And maybe that is, I guess, nervousness in a way, but
Different.
to me, it's just an easier way for me to handle it. And yeah, I find it to be that time period, especially coming in, there's an excitement. I did not know the timeline. I did not know these certain things, but at the same time, I kind of knew, if that makes sense. I kind of felt like, okay, well, this is what it is.
Coming soon, yeah. So here you are, Stand and Deliver ahead. Joe Hendry as the champion, Ethan Page and Tony D'Angelo also contending in this fatal four-way match. Having already gotten a taste of the NXT championship this fall, the responsibilities that come with it, how do you view this opportunity on this stage?
Well, this is, last year, me and Ethan Page opened Stand and Deliver, and now this year we're closing Stand and Deliver. So it's a lot of pressure behind that, and on top of that is for the NXT championship. So to me, that's like a night and day difference.
Mhm.
You know, I am in search of something more, as always. In this current phase, my goal right now is to become a two-time NXT champion, to be within that small list of people who are. So only you have to think about this too. I'm in there with three other guys, three other well-accomplished people. And we're main eventing Stand and Deliver, our biggest show of the year. That right there is pressure within itself, on top of wanting to be NXT champion again and proving my self-worth. Uh, all of that combined, I think, really makes a great situation for. I'm sure I'm not the only one that feels that way. I'm sure the three other guys feel the same way as well. And so there's a small chip on all of our shoulders when it comes to each other of saying, "Hey, I actually deserve to be champion, and you don't."
Do you feel any additional pressure on your shoulders too? Because there's so much talk, deservedly so, let's be very clear, about the women in NXT and the incredible job they're doing. A lot
They're
of
great.
a lot of people wanted one of those women's matches to potentially main event this show. It's going to be you guys. Do you feel any added pressure to show, hey, we deserve to be in this spot? This is where this match belongs, basically.
Yes, absolutely. I think the the women on the roster are incredible. So every time, I like that though. I like that type of sportsmanship type. You know, we who can be better, basically. Who can be better? And the women do a fantastic job. They go out there and they kill it every single time. So every time one of us has to follow them, there's another heightened
Mhm.
level of like, well, we have to follow that. So
Yeah.
let's make sure we can. We got to keep up.
So before you came into NXT, you had largely been sidelined for like the prior 11 months. I think you had wrestled like 5 different matches in indies and stuff like that. For a
Yeah.
guy who was working on TV weekly, often twice a week, you were used a lot. To go from like 60 to 0 rather than 0 to 60, was it tough for you to get yourself going again when signing with WWE? And if so, what was the most difficult part of that?
I think during the indies, it wasn't. This is what most people don't know. I was still training, so I was still training and doing all of that. So to jump in wasn't like, oh man, I'm rusty, so to speak. I think when it comes to that type of schedule, it takes some time to get back into the groove of things. But I think my body is just so used to it that I was able to jump back in and quickly adapt. Uh, so this sounds crazy, but I actually look forward to the schedule. I
Mhm.
like staying busy and I like keeping the body constantly in motion. The indies definitely helped too, within that small break as well, and that was some of the most fun I've ever had, in a bit. So I can only be so thankful for the independence at that time too, because I definitely think it helped me when I got here to be a little bit more sharper than, let's say, if I hadn't done it.
Mhm. How restless were you during that time? And were you ever given a reason as to why you were held out for such a long time? It's one thing for a couple months here and there, but you know.
Yeah, no, no real discussion or anything like that. from my side of it in terms of what was discussed and all that. But there was some restlessness just because I'm so used to wrestling all the time.
Mhm.
And I think that's the type of person I am. I'm used to creating, I'm used to using my body for these things. And to not have that was a very odd place to be at mentally. And so you're having to figure out these other things, especially when it goes to like the independence. It was not as easy to get some of these independent dates cleared. And um, for, that's not a knock on the company itself. It's just conflict of interest for AEW and whatever independent that I wanted to do. But at the end of the day, it all worked out.
That-
Truthfully, it all worked out, and I'm thankful for both sides. I'm thankful for AEW. I'm thankful for the independents as well.
Yeah, no, it did. And now you're in WWE. You've been all over the place so far in NXT, different divisions, different opponents, hands in a lot of baskets. It feels to me like this partnership that you had slash have with Ethan Page and even Vanity Project as well has gotten you into a different groove, almost kicked you into another gear, especially as your character has shifted as well. Am I
Yeah.
perceiving that right? And if so, what is it about what's happening now that has you operating differently?
Well, I mean, it could be for the simple fact that the carrot's different. That dangling carrot looks a lot more enticing for certain people, but for me, it's different. It's something new. It's something that I want to get back to, and I think having the chemistry with Ethan Page and all these people, only heightens Ricky and himself. And um, I think what you're seeing on screen is just chemistry at its finest. That's just what's always been inside of me. And now, this is a good opportunity too, because this is kind of, you go, that's who I used to see. That's the guy that I used to see like out on the independents or NWA or wherever. And so that's a kind of cool throwback too, with a different spin on it now.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So, with those Vanity Project guys, you've been doing this for well over a decade now, and you've worked with a ton of talent, young guys coming up, some of the biggest names ever in the industry. What is it
Yeah.
about those three guys that has them already going so far so fast?
Well, I just think that they get it. They get it. And I think that's from the help of different people such as Ethan Page. Like, their mind is so interesting in how they view wrestling. And I think that helps them. Don't forget they were doing the independence for
Yeah.
3 years, 4 years. So they're a road crew. They're some road warriors in that aspect. And that helps them tremendously because they have seen and been exposed to different things. And now they're able to solve problems a little bit differently than someone who hadn't
Mhm.
had that type of experience could.
And it's honing their characters and personalities too, right? Because
Yeah,
you did that in NWA where it was like, wow, that guy, I could see him, no disrespect to NWA, but I could see him on national television. I could see that
yeah,
guy cutting a promo in the main event. They
right,
had that time and they realized, hey, those characters, gimmicks for lack of a better term, this is what we need to separate us beyond our wrestling skill.
right. Yeah, and I think it takes time. That's all it takes. And
Yeah.
time is sometimes our enemy, but it's needed. It's the best teacher that you could have, honestly, in my opinion, at
Yeah.
least.
No, that makes sense. And so you've been regularly on national TV. You've had title matches at pay-per-views. You've done all that stuff.
Yeah.
But now you're obviously in WWE. You're starting with NXT. What would you say to a peer who views that as a step down or feels they are above coming to WWE and starting in NXT before potentially winding up on Raw and SmackDown?
NXT is a third brand. I mean, the wrestling that we have on this television show is rivaled with not only the other brands within this company, but other companies out there in the world.
Mhm.
And I think some of the women's matches, if you just saw Lola versus Kendall Gray, like,
Yeah, bang match.
incredible.
Yeah, it was awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. So that can stand shoulder to shoulder with some of these other matches. I think some of it has to do with how they perceive NXT, and it's kind of ignorance, to be real with you, because you look at it in a certain way, and just with just from a topical view, right? You're just like, eh. But I say actually give it a chance, actually watch it. You can see these people grow and bloom in a way that You wouldn't be able to do that like in the past days unless you were a big tape trader. This kind of gives you the opportunity to do that weekly.
Yeah.
On a weekly basis, you're seeing these people grow, and it's amazing. Everyone has this type of innate passion about uh the wrestling aspect of it that is it's very endearing. I find it a little bit more charming in some aspects. And when in terms of NXT.
Yeah, yeah. Did that environment surprise you? Was it something that you perhaps didn't expect going down there?
No, because I had a tryout in 2017.
Right.
So that environment I was kind of used to. If anything, you got better equipment, you got more people, you got more staff. Like it's only improved from when I was there. So no, none of that surprised me in this sense because I was like, this is kind of cool. Like I dig it.
How underrated? Because everyone talks about the trainers and they're awesome, and everyone talks
Yes.
about Shawn Michaels and Terry Taylor and so on. How underrated is like the actual training room and the doctors, the physicians, like all of that stuff that is
Oh man.
also there?
Oh man. Like, dude, if I had this when I first started, I would be light years ahead of where I'm at right now. It's incredible. Every time I come here, I'm just like, we have that? He was like, yeah. I was like, wow. There's stuff I haven't even seen yet that I didn't know we have. That I'm just like, didn't need to spend the $80 to go to a cold plunge, facility. Like we have it here. We don't need to. So I'm always surprised because it's like Christmas. There's always something cool.
That's cool. So you're one of a handful now who have made that transition over to WWE from AEW one way or another. I know you've
Mhm.
previously discussed like tribalism and some other conversations you've had, but do you sometimes feel as almost as if there's like a microscope on you, Jade Cargill, Blake Monroe, a few others from a subsection of fans? And do you feel that microscope is fair?
I don't know if I've ever given it much thought of it being a microscope. I think to be a wrestler, you're going to be under a microscope regardless, regardless of where you come from. Some people have it worse than others.
Mhm.
Um, eh, but I've never really given it that much energy or thought, only because what I do I can get the immediate reaction from the people who are in the live crowd and the people who are paying, right? And so I have to go off of that. And I respect people's opinions that they have online about me or, some other people from AEW and how they feel that, we may have been better here or there, or whatever the case may be. The point is that I am alive, I'm healthy, and I'm able to wrestle, and I'm still able to wrestle. If you are a fan of Ricky Saints and I am still able to wrestle, regardless of where it is, that is a win.
Right.
That's a win for me. That's a win for you. So yeah, I try not to. I don't. I don't really dive too far into that. I do think that it is unfair. There's some unfair criticism for sure. Not just with us, with almost everybody, But that's kind of what it is. And you can either choose to ignore it or you can choose to read into it fully and, let it consume you.
Yeah.
But I choose not to just because it doesn't serve me.
The other thing I think people sometimes miss is just because you see something happen on TV, it doesn't mean it was always planned that way. It was supposed to go that way. How frequently will a decision be made, whether it's let's say a match booking or something that you're supposed to do from a promo standpoint, but it ends up having to change? And I'm not just saying in NXT and I'm saying across your career where
Right.
someone got hurt, someone
Ooh,
had to make a major decision creatively because someone couldn't make a trip, they weren't able to make the show. Um,
right.
Someone nixed something. Hey, I don't want you to say that about me. Whatever the case might be. How often does that happen? That fans just don't realize. They think everything they're getting was always planned from the beginning. And if I don't like it, then they are really stupid because they didn't do this the right way.
That's a hard number to give you
We
because
don't have to quantify it. I'm just saying it's frequent, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
to quantify is difficult, obviously, but that happens a lot more than you would think. And obviously, I personally feel like it's not up to them to know because I think to know it just means to like you're having to make up an excuse or I don't know, but it happens a lot more than you think. And I do think that uh, people try their hardest to pivot as best they can, and you'll find that across all entertainment. Literally,
Yep.
there's TV shows and rewrites and you have concerts that the performer can't even sing a song or just stuff different like that that you'll never know. So I guess in that aspect, from the performer's aspect or the performer's perspective of it, it does suck because, man, if you only knew the reason for X, Y, and Z, right? Maybe it wouldn't be maybe it wouldn't be as harsh on me as you are right now. Sure. But I mean, by tomorrow, this will all be forgotten.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Things move so quickly that that's all I always say. Man, by tomorrow, it'll be forgotten.
Yeah. Well, I
It's
mean,
just a
look,
blip of time.
that's what John Cena said. He's like, look, I'm going to retire. And then next month, none of you are going to remember my retirement. It's not going to matter.
Right.
Even if it's great, even if it's amazing, it doesn't matter.
It's just a blip. That's it. And I don't mean it to say it in such a sad way. I'm just
Yeah.
saying, sometimes our perspective is the key to how we feel.
Yeah. It's also one of the few sports or sport adjacent, entertainment vehicles where it's all year. There's no break. You don't film a movie and then stop and then go away for 3 months. It's every week you're back. And if you're healthy, generally, especially if you're top of the card, you don't stop being used unless, there's something
Yeah.
you need to go away for. So,
Right. Yeah, exactly. And that's a part of it too that people are like, well, this is how it is. Like, it can't always be 100% the 12 months out of the year.
right. Yeah. Like if October through December is incredible and then January is doesn't change October to
Right.
December being incredible. Yeah.
You get it. You get
Yeah.
it. So, and even then, those months may not be that bad to some people. Some
Right.
people be like, yeah, it was cool.
Yeah, for sure. Growing up as a fan, now getting the chance to, obviously, I mentioned that you working with Shawn Michaels, you see The Undertaker down there sometimes, Terry Taylor, people don't really talk about him as much. But then also thinking back and wrestling CM Punk for a major title on a huge show, teaming with him in that banger 6-man
Dude.
tag, I want to say, right? If I asked you what, to this point, your pinch myself moment has been in your career, what would that singular moment be?
I have two.
That's fair.
One is working with Ricky Steamboat.
Mm.
And then the other one would be my match that I had with Sting. His first match back after I think 8 years.
Mhm.
Like getting to work with Sting and doing that cinematic match was incredible.
Yeah, that was
I
cool.
couldn't believe it. Like even to this day, I'm just like, wow, that's crazy. That I was his first match back and I was his second to last match ever. So yeah, those two are like pretty standout moments for me just because of how cool it was and how like, wow, this is it. This is what we're doing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Speaking of forgetting things, I forgot. I can't believe it. I forgot the Steamboat thing. That was ridiculous. I mean,
Right.
to have him involved in that was crazy. Like,
Absolutely crazy. I loved it. It was what a moment in time.
yeah, it really was. That was cool. So before we wrap this up, all right, it would pain me to
Okay.
have you on this show and not talk for a few minutes about New Orleans because, look, that's your home. You know the
Yeah.
ins and outs, the struggle of the city. I've spent 3 to 4 weeks there over the past few years as a tourist, just working. So it's different, right?
Wow.
But man, I get to New Orleans and I never want to leave, no matter what. What is so special for you about your home?
It is the people.
Yeah.
It's the people, it's the history, it's the culture, it's a general vibe. Everyone that I've talked to when they land in New Orleans and they start, they get situated into their hotel and they go, wow,
Feel it on the street.
so you can just yeah, everyone's so nice. There's something different. There's something different about the place. And that it's just so important to me because I'm a big vibes guy. You know what I'm saying? I thrive off of vibes. And I represent New Orleans as well as I can because when I grew up, there wasn't a lot of people from New Orleans on TV
Mhm.
at all, if anything. And so it's important to me to have that because, somebody's watching from New Orleans, be like, yeah, 504, we represent, that's who people can latch on to. And I like that. I like that feeling, especially for what New Orleans has been through as a city in the years and years past. I can only hope that the history stays preserved, the environment, the vibes, the overall sentiment of that city stays as preserved as it can. And I am working diligently to be an extension of that
Mhm.
through what you see on TV, when you see me wrestle, when you see me do my little dance or the
Mhm.
way that I dress or talk. That's very important to me.
Yeah.
I just I can't gush about it enough. It's just one of those places that it is a magical place
Yeah.
that you feel recharged after visiting. And
Yeah.
you don't even gotta go to Bourbon Street. You can
No,
literally you can walk anywhere and it happens.
I prefer Frenchman Street anyway. It's just bad. It's more fun, right?
Yes.
So
Jackson Square,
that
just go get an artwork, why not?
exactly, yeah. But that's the thing. It's like you get off the plane, you drive in, and you get out, and you feel different. Like you can go to New York and it's crazy. You go to Chicago, it's crazy. Miami, it's special if you go to South Beach or whatever. But New Orleans is like, oh, you feel welcome. Like they want you here almost, and
Yeah.
that's really odd for a major city.
That's what I'm saying, because people genuinely do care
Yeah.
about others there. And that's a hard thing to get from other places,
It is.
especially if you're a tourist too.
Yeah.
Like that's a very hard thing to feel like, oh, I feel a part of the family immediately.
Yeah, for sure. So some quick New Orleans takes from you. All right. So
Ooh,
Po' Boys, Parkway
okay.
Bakery, Dom Elisa's, or somewhere else.
Man, well, that's hard because I like to go to the little neighborhood,
Okay.
like gas station places, right?
That's
because they hook it up. And you heard me in past interviews where I said I always love this place called We Never Close, Po' Boy Shop. And the joke is that some of them are closed. But Dom DeLuise, I would go with that one.
Yeah. What about
Only because of the history.
let me switch it this way: shrimp,
All right.
roast beef, or something else in the Po' Boy.
Shrimp. Oh man,
Just making
fried shrimp all the way.
Yeah.
You got to get the Leidenheimer bread. That
yeah, the flakes. Yep.
beautiful French bread. Oh my gosh.
All right.
Oh my gosh.
Cafe Du Monde, overrated, underrated, or perfectly rated?
What would you rate it?
I mean, pretty effing good. Like it is. Someone's like, hey, it's basically a donut, right? And then you go, and you're a tourist. You're like, it's not going to be good. And then it's incredible, and it's also really bad for you, obviously. But it's incredible. And I'm not even a coffee drinker. That's
I'm about to say
the Cafe au Lait is great too.
Jerry coffee.
So I would say perfectly rated is what I would call it.
I would go with that. There are times where I go and I go, I shouldn't be doing this, or I'm not in the mood to, and I'm immediately elevated. I go,
one bite.
Yeah. Dude, there's people who go at like 3 a.m. in the morning, not even drunk, just 3 a.m. Wake up out of their bed and go, I'm feeling.
So I was there for the Super Bowl. I walked home from the Superdome.
How cool.
Back to the hotel. I see.
Well, you're brave. But
well, yeah. I mean, there was a lot of people. I see Cafe Du Monde. I'm like, all right, let's do this. It was like 1:45 in the morning, and it hit. It was amazing. It hit.
That's what I'm telling you. Right. Yeah, it looks packed, but they get them. They get them in and out.
So fast.
They get them in and out.
All right, a few more: gumbo, jambalaya, or etouffee. Got to pick.
Jambalaya, for sure. It's got to have sausage in it and shrimp.
Fair. Mardi Gras or Jazz Fest?
Mardi Gras.
Well, we already said Frenchman Street over Bourbon Street. Last one, okay? You're with your buddies. You got the aux. Everyone needs to get hype. What Cash Money song are you playing?
Oh, man. It's not a Cash Money song. It's a Juvenile song, but it's Soldier Rag. It's called Soldier Rag.
Yeah.
Soldier Rag would be it. And then the next one would be
I meant anyone in Cash Money, so that counts.
That's okay, good. Then yeah, I would definitely do Soldier Rag.
All right.
Just because I love it. There's another song called
I mean, Ricky, let me just say, Ricky Saints should probably be answering Still Fly or something like that. Number one Stemo. Right?
Sure.
One of those should probably be the Ricky Saints answer. I'm just saying.
I'm a deep cut guy, so Soldier Rag is my like top one. If you ever ask me, where I'm just like, that's the one that gets me. It gets me hype every time.
Give me.
Yeah, I would do that one. I would do a deep cut because Still Fly. That's like everybody know that one.
Fair, but I'm saying if it's Ricky Saints, I mean, Still Fly, number one Stunner. That's what we're trying to do. What about a Wayne song? I know you like Wayne too.
Oh man, dang, a classic Wayne song.
Well, anything you like.
That's hard. That is so hard because you got me going to his mixtapes.
Right. Well, that's the thing. He made so much. That's like Juvie. It's limited. It's decently limited. Wayne, it just didn't stop.
Here's one for you that is good. I can't remember which one what mixtape is from, but it's called Live from the 504.
Okay.
And it's over, he does them over different instrumentals that people have done in the past.
Yeah.
But that one is my favorite one because he raps only about the New Orleans commercials. He raps about streets in New Orleans. He raps about like the very small, detailed Nardwuar type stuff of New Orleans in that song.
All right.
That's my song.
I don't think New Orleans needs a tourism boost, but maybe we gave him a little bit here on the show.
We could, yeah.
Great.
Go to Holly Grove.
So funny. you hear those things like in tracks, right? And then you're
Yeah.
there and you're like, yeah, let me drive by, see what. Yeah, that's okay.
That's what I'm saying.
All right.
That's what you get it. You get it, man. You're like,
All
oh,
right.
this is real.
Look, appreciate your time, man. So generous. Ricky Saints obviously will be main eventing NXT Stand and Deliver Saturday, April 4th from the factory at the District in St. Louis, St. Louis, live on YouTube in the United States, Netflix internationally. Really appreciate the time, man. Best of luck here going forward and hope to speak to you again soon.
Thank you, Adam. This was great. You
Yeah,
did a great job.
It's the goal. Thanks once again to Ricky Saints for joining us. Awesome conversation, if I do say so myself. Loved getting that opportunity to speak with him for the first time. Found some of his answers to be quite interesting, especially, I didn't necessarily plan coming in to ask about the men main eventing over the women. I loved the answer he gave, though, that, look, yeah, it's difficult to be put in that position anyway, especially when fans are interested in the women being in that spot, but you also now have to follow those awesome women. So those guys, those 4 guys on Saturday night, Ricky Saints, Joe Hendry, Ethan Page, and Tony D'Angelo, I mean, they need to now follow Sol Ruca and Zarya, which is the best built story on the brand right now, not to mention what looks to be an incredible NXT championship match for the women and a North American championship match for them as well. So that was super interesting to me. Obviously loved getting deep into the conversation about New Orleans at the end. Like I said, at that point, it was just something I've wanted to do with someone from there for a long time. And he was certainly the perfect person to go back and forth about some things I love about the area. And even the conversation we had around what fans see on screen, not necessarily being reality, meaning injuries, deaths in families, all these obstacles come up that affect booking and creative, and what you see is not always exactly what was planned from the beginning. That along with, and look, I'll be a little candid. I shielded the question. I didn't want to name anyone specific, but when it came to, people looking down on potentially starting their WWE careers in NXT, there was obviously someone in the news recently who it came out didn't like that, and they weren't excited to, wrestle in NXT when they could potentially start their career in AEW. And I was curious what Ricky's stance would be on that, given that he is someone who did exactly that. He left one company, went to another, and didn't immediately go to the main roster, despite a lot of people believing that he belonged there. And it was pretty cool to hear Ricky say the same thing that Ethan did, that they don't view NXT as developmental or anything less than Raw or SmackDown. It's just different, and it is vastly different. Raw and SmackDown are playing to arenas that have upwards of 15 to sometimes even 18,000 people filling them out, whereas NXT, it's a couple hundred people in the Performance Center, or when they hit the road, go to the theater at Madison Square Garden like they did on Tuesday, they get a few thousand in the building. That's one of the unfortunate parts of NXT Stand and Deliver being moved off WrestleMania weekend. We've spoken about this before. It made sense this year. They were not going to have the same buy-in going back to Las Vegas for a second year in a row for the main show. That is why ticket sales are slow for night 1 and night 2 of WrestleMania, not to mention extremely slow for the go-home SmackDown and the Raw after WrestleMania. They are not going to hit their numbers. Had they put NXT Stand and Deliver there the same weekend, they wouldn't have sold as many tickets as they did last year. And the crazy early start time I should have asked him about that. That was my mistake for missing it. Coming out of the WWE Hall of Fame with WrestleMania night 1 later that day, it just made it untenable. So for this year alone, moving Stand and Deliver outside of WrestleMania weekend into another city, St. Louis, with a much smaller crowd, for me, it made sense. Next year, we have no idea what's going to happen, given the location of WrestleMania 43. But once they're back stateside, presumably for WrestleMania 44, I want to see Stand and Deliver back on WrestleMania weekend, 9,000, 10,000 people in that crowd, because that always sells the event. And even last year, despite how many people were legitimately tired as Stand and Deliver began in the morning on the West Coast, by the end of that show, the crowd was crazy. And you'll remember some of those matches were absolutely incredible. Speaking of that, let's go ahead and transition to our 2026 NXT Stand and Deliver Ultimate Preview. There are 7 total matches on the card, one of them being in the pre-show. And what I found most interesting is, again, as we sit here on Wednesday, April 1st, there are no stipulations on any of these bouts You have straight up singles matches, straight up tag team matches, a 10-man, and, the 4-man main event, the 4-way. But that's not really a stipulation. I mean, yeah, they can get into weapons and stuff because of, no DQ rules. But there's not a ladder match on this show, or falls count anywhere, or submission, or whatever the case might be. And you certainly would have thought that a stipulation would have gotten added somewhere, particularly Sol Ruca against Zarya. We're going to get to that a little bit later, because while we do normally try to hit the main event of premium live events as the final match that we cover, Silver King always operates a bit differently, because after all,
This is my show. My show.
and with all due respect to Saints, certainly, Hendry, Paige, and D'Angelo, I think everyone listening to this show knows that what is most anticipated about NXT Stand Deliver are the 3 women's matches, but especially Sol Ruca against Zarya. So that is how we are going to main event the NXT Stand Deliver Ultimate Preview. Let's kick it off with the pre-show. We have Shiloh Hill, Sean Legacy, who apparently, I guess, is healed with his foot injury, Eli Knight, and Ren Sinclair fighting Birthright in that 10-person mixed match. Super interesting. When you have a pre-show, generally you want to start the crowd off on a hot note. You want a big baby face when everyone's really excited. And when you have Ren, especially, 2 high flyers, and Shiloh, who is manic and fans are buying into, like, they really should be winning this match. The problem is you just established Birthright as a faction on this brand, and they have pretty much done nothing but lose despite being established. I don't believe that's the intention of the group. So we don't know what's happening with Dark State. If they get involved here, then I would say, okay, the baby faces will win. But even though ideally in this spot, you put the faces over, and I'm probably going to get this prediction wrong because I'm using logic rather than just what's best for the card and getting the fans hype, really Birthright needs to win this match. It's the whole faction involved pretty much. I mean, that's who needs to go over. So I have Birthright winning this pre-show match, knowing Silver King might have put himself in a bad situation to be incorrect. Tag Team Championship is the, lowest match, I would say, on the main card. Vanity Project, who should be called Swipe Right, defending their titles against Los Americanos. Look, clearly with Americanos becoming number 1 contenders, this spot was supposed to go to Legacy and Knight as a way of featuring young talent on a huge show while enhancing the tag team division. It's unfortunate that they had to make that change, and they're in the pre-show match, so not all is lost. But the crowd has reacted so incredibly well to Los Americanos through 2 appearances, and almost certainly they will do the same on Saturday. This also allows, Jackson Drake would have been on the show anyway, but being able to counter El Grande Americano, who almost certainly will show up, it makes a lot of sense. So we get all those guys involved as well. Ultimately, they just strapped up Vanity Project. They are the right champions. Los Americanos are primarily a main roster / AAA group, so it doesn't necessarily make sense for them to win the NXT titles. This should be a retention, and most importantly, a major featured spot for the talent of Vanity Project. You heard Ricky Saints put them over earlier. Los Americanos, if there's anyone who's going to help those guys shine, it's them. This should be an awesome match. I don't think it's going to steal the show or anything like that, but it could open just because of the possibilities of greatness. And if it does, whenever it runs on the show, I do believe it ultimately will be a
Banger.
North American Championship. Miles Bourne defending against Johnny Gargano. In an interview with Vic Joseph on NXT, Bourne actually thanked Ethan Page for teaching him a lesson. He needed to find an edge in order to hold championship gold. He said that he took personally not being on the Stand and Deliver last year, but he plans on walking in and out as champion. Bourne put over Gargano as a champion on par with Page, noting it's even crazier for him facing a full-fledged SmackDown superstar in his first major title defense. Gargano then interrupted after Bourne spoke, reminding that he was once Johnny Takeover, saying if he finds that version of himself Saturday, he will eat Miles alive. He said he has no personal issue with Bourne, but because winning the North American title gets him his life back, while losing could send him even deeper, Gargano will stand and will deliver on Saturday. He has no choice otherwise. This is the exact version of Johnny I continue to believe deep down can be a legitimate big-time babyface on the main roster. It does seem like WWE is heading in that direction with him, win or lose. If this kickstarts that gimmick, all the better. Nice interview both ways. You could feel the confidence from Bourne, and the intensity from Gargano far exceeded expectations, considering this is a relatively thrown together, undeserved title opportunity for Johnny. And that makes this relatively difficult to predict, right? Because Gargano getting his groove back to, rekindle that old movie title from decades ago, it really should start in NXT. It should start with him succeeding there, remembering who he is, putting on one banger match after another, as one might say,
Banger.
after
Banger.
after
Banger.
And if Bourne was entering this match as champion for, 3 months, 2 months, with 4 or 5 defenses, I would say not only should they put Johnny over, they would put Johnny over. But it just doesn't feel like that is the direction they're going. I see this being hotly contested, down to the wire. Bourne ultimately beating Gargano, probably because Johnny slips or screws up or something happens where he just gives himself an out, basically to lose without it being purely based on skill. Bourne retains, Gargano goes back into his depression and moves back over to SmackDown, and then we see what happens from there. I would love it if Johnny won the North American title. I just don't know why you strap up Miles only to take it off of him basically immediately after a really weird tuxedo style match with Ethan in his lone defense, I believe, since winning the title. I'm shocked that they didn't do the Bourne Page match at Stand and Deliver. We now know why they didn't do it, of course. But yeah, you just crowned this guy. I don't see them moving off of him. I'd love it if Gargano won, but he's not going to. Bourne retains the North American Championship. We'll stay with the title. We'll flip over to the women. Tatum Paxley defending against Blake Monroe. This really should be the opener for Stand and Deliver. There's 3 awesome women's matches. One should open, one should main event, and really the other should co-main event. But if you did opener, mid-show, main event, that would have been okay. I love that the women are all over this show, and I love the way that this match was built with such a short runway. Vanity Project tried to rizz up Monroe backstage, telling her to be careful with Paxley as a stalker and offering to even walk her into the locker room if needed. Blake declined their help and left the guys wanting more, which is, of course, extremely easy for her to do. Tatum later hit the ring, saying Blake being so complex is exciting before welcoming her out to the ring. Monroe came out with the championship belt, saying it just feels right in her arms considering she never lost it, and now she can't let it go. Paxley said she understands her more than she thinks, and they can have fun at NXT's biggest show of the year as long as Blake gives her back the title. Though Tatum thought they were alike, Blake said they could not be any more different. She's the glamour who people bow down to in order to honor her. Tatum is closer to the dirty New Yorkers in the crowd. Of course, New York popped huge at that. Paxley said that she can be the goth to Blake's glamour, the fire to her hell, but it starts with her leaving holding the title. Banger line. Blake got her ass kicked, but still ran away with the strap when all was said and done. This confused me because going in, I thought the match was already made. And this was just a face-to-face to build hype with Tatum trying to get her title back. Then as it progressed, it was clear Paxley was offering the title shot for the belt, which was completely fine. But the entire gimmick was her saying Monroe could get the opportunity if she gave the strap back. The segment ended with a tug of war and Tatum not getting the strap. So shouldn't that mean the match is not happening? That was her entire stipulation to give Blake the opportunity. You guys know that illogical stuff is always going to bother me. There's no reason for them not to get it right. And yes, I know Blake is a heel. I understand she's going to say one thing, do the other, take the title and expect the title match. I completely get all of that. But if you're going to say the only way I'm going to give you a title match is if you give me back the physical belt, Paxley should have at least had it in her possession for a part of the segment. Then Blake attacks her, steals it back. She gave it back, but then she took it anyway. Like, at least do something like that. All of that said, both of them were quite strong on the mic, and it might have been Blake's best work on the stick.
PG, brother.
Since she joined WWE. Tatum was a perfect playing partner, and while she did outclass Blake in the promo, that's not surprising. We've said this many times. Paxley is a different breed of performer. She is so confident, so real, so believable. You just want to root for her. This was better than the best parts of every Rhea Ripley Jade Cargill segment combined, multiplied by 10. There were layers to their promos, depth added to their characters. There is no reason the main roster doesn't have this quality structuring, solid writing, and character development. This was a one-show deal, a go-home moment to build to a real quick turn title match. And it was still better than the entirety of Ripley and Cargill, which is a world title match at WrestleMania. It is completely unacceptable for this to be so much better than that. I actually wish this program was longer because they really could have done something special together. Paxley really needs to retain the title here. If she lost and WWE called her up, let me be clear, that is if she loses and WWE calls her up to the main roster, I'm okay with it because that is where Tatum Paxley belongs. If they are not calling her up to the main roster, it would make no sense for her to drop this strap after she won and then lost the NXT championship to JC Jane with the quickness, doing the exact same thing here to Izzy Dame. Granted, she did beat her a second time to retain the title, but she hasn't had 3 or 5 defenses. She hasn't been, really bolstered up as champion. In fact, this whole feud developed immediately after she retained one time over Izzy. Unless you are going to call her up to the main roster. And by the way, if they did, I know there's multiple asides here, but if they brought her up to the main roster, you put her in a babyface trio with Bayley and Lyra Valkyria, that would be an incredible move and it would work so well for all 3 women. But unless that is happening, Tatum really needs to walk out of Stand and Deliver still champion. It solidifies her as a real presence in this division. And because this is such a short turn to get to this first match, you can easily run this again. And then at that point, if you want Monroe to win back the North American title, more power to her. Go ahead and do it. I'm predicting Tatum retains here. I think they're smart enough to know not to take it off of her right away. And I don't believe a call-up is happening imminently. That is the reason for that prediction. Let's move to the NXT Championship, the main event of Stand and Deliver, the mid-show match here on the Ultimate Preview, and really where it belongs on the card. Joe Hendry defending against Ricky Saints, Ethan Page, and Tony D'Angelo. There was an in-ring contract signing held at the top of the hour with Robert Stone calling it the main event of Stand and Deliver. I felt like this was an insult to the women's division, which has run circles around these guys for months now. It's a joke having this go on last. That has nothing to do with the talent of all 4 guys. These 4 dudes are the right 4 to be in the match, to be contesting for the title. All of that is appropriate. If this was a different show with different matches on it, it's a no-brainer main event on the same show as Sol Ruca and Zarya and potentially JC Jane and Kendall Gray. I just don't see how this goes ahead of it other than them being men. And that is not a good enough reason as far as I'm concerned. Hendry roused the crowd, saying he'd rely on his passion to overcome all the adversity he's facing. Saints got great heat, dropping a bing bong because, New York, the Knicks, saying he should already be champion again after he got screwed out of the title, and he'd right those wrongs on Saturday. Page put himself over as not only the greatest North American, but the best in the entirety of WWE, someone who deserves global recognition. The heels argued over that in a good-natured fashion before D'Angelo cut them off, saying he's the hungriest and he's the one who has not been champion yet. He called Saints an absolute underwhelming failure and Hendry an outsider, considering Tony D is NXT born and bred. He promised to run over all 3 guys like a freight train and win the title before purposefully starting a 4-way brawl. D'Angelo put Saints through a table with his finisher. Hendry took Ego's edge into another, but he careened off the side, did not eat it clean at all. I hope he's okay. The segment was fine. Everyone got their points across. They received solid reactions, Saints especially. But all it did was solidify what I just said about it really not deserving to main event. The women's storylines are deeper and better, and it feels like these guys are only being put in this spot because of their gender. It's patently ridiculous. I'm not saying that's the reason. There could be something awesome planned here. It could be the best match on the show. We may walk out of Stand and Deliver saying, wow, I can't believe I ever thought Sol and Zarya should have main evented over this. I'm such an idiot. Quite possible. I'm just saying going in, based on what we've seen on television recently, to me, it's not only disappointing, but it's actually shocking. I did not think this would be the final match on the show. Now, when we get into a 4-way match like this for a title, we always play process of elimination. That is how you figure out who ultimately will win. And when it comes to these 4, I got to admit, it's pretty difficult because I could make a legitimate case for all of them. D'Angelo came back after a long layoff. He is the lone NXT product who hasn't held this title and also needs that level of elevation. I've been impressed with his presentation, the look, certainly the way he's worked out, his body, the shape he's gotten in, and some of the physical work that he's done in matches, the wrestling match that he had on NXT TV weeks ago. Guy looks great. This character is not there. His voice is more high-pitched than I expected, and his promos aren't hitting, even if the physicality is. So for me, strapping the title on a guy who isn't ready from a character standpoint is the wrong move, and also it's extremely easy to excuse a loss. He doesn't have to take the fall. You just push him off. He gets knocked outside. The others get involved in the finish. So I'm eliminating D'Angelo from this. Saints and Paige are kind of in the same boat, where either of them immediately after WrestleMania could be on the main roster. You wouldn't blink. Paige is more ready than Saints, only from the standpoint he's accomplished so much in NXT. He had that long North American title reign. We've already seen him interacting with Chelsea Green. We know that Paige needs to be there sooner than later, whereas Saints, he can still grow in NXT, and there's still leash there where, yeah, he had an NXT title reign. It was only a couple of months. He lost it back to the guy he won it from. He has not been this heel character while holding gold yet. And this is his best character to date since joining NXT, as we kind of talked about earlier in this show. So I'm going to eliminate Paige. I believe he's main roster bound after WrestleMania. I could be wrong, but I believe he is. And that brings us down to Saints, who we just discussed, and Hendry, who won this title in a ladder match, has not had many defenses. I want to say 2. Jackson Drake on TV shortly after winning, and then Ricky Saints at Vengeance Day. I believe those are the only 2 times that he defended the title on television. So he only has 2 defenses, and you're just kind of starting his reign. He's doing decently well, but just like with Paige and Saints, Hendry could get called up to the main roster too. I've said this before. I don't know how much teeth this gimmick has in WWE. It worked incredibly well for TNA. Maybe every single time he changes a brand, so TNA, then NXT, then main roster, you get a period of time out of it. But I just don't really know that, this Joe Hendry, that I believe in Joe Hendry, the say his name and he appears, the whole 9 yards. I don't know how long that's going to work. So they could be looking at this like a Jordan Grace, where you get her on the brand for a couple months, work things out and then move him up. And they gave him the title because they basically had to in a quick twitch fashion when Obafemi relinquished it after winning it back from Saints, which he did not need to do because he was getting called up, but they didn't realize it at the time. So there's a great case not to take it off Hendry. There's a great case to put it on Saints. I really don't know. I have no idea. Any of these 4 guys could win. I think D'Angelo is the least likely. A title change would make a lot of sense and be the most exciting booking, giving it to Saints, in my opinion. But I'm going to go with Hendry retaining the title in a 4-way situation. You can excuse any loss. He could pin Saints again because he already has, and he knocked him off the ladder. They could then get a one-on-one, on the back end, and Ricky can win the title. I think the next NXT champion is among the 3 challengers. I just don't believe we're going to see that person on Saturday. Hendry retains the NXT championship. Again, same title moving over to the women. JC Jane defending against, well, I have no idea.
And you know this, man.
Even here on the Ultimate Preview, we don't know who Jane will be fighting on the show. There are obviously 3 options. Well, there's 4 options. Gray, because the primary referee's decision counts. Vice, because the other referee saw the tap occur a split second before the 3 count. A triple threat, which is certainly the odds-on favorite for the booking and what we will discuss most here. Or they could do a play-in match to open the show with the winner between Lola and Kendall advancing into the main event. To me, as I said earlier, this whole thing is overly and unnecessarily convoluted. Gray is a future main roster main eventer. Vice is a damn good prospect who will undoubtedly be a mid-card champion at minimum on the main roster. This is your biggest show of the year. Kendall gave up her Evolve title. JC didn't drop the title to Tatum, Soul, or Zarya. Why is this match not Jane versus Gray one-on-one a passing of the torch moment with Fatal Influence exiting NXT and the women's division being built around Kendall? I need an answer. Maybe we'll get one Saturday, but I simply cannot make sense of the decision to go potentially with a triple threat or add some convolution to the booking where Kendall gets the match, but Lola is pissed, so she gets involved and it costs her the title and JC retains. Like that. Look, none of this is to say that a triple threat is inherently bad. The match will probably be awesome if that is the booking. But there is only one way to finish it, and it needs to be JC taking the fall and Kendall going over. Any other option is absurd. Jane does not need protection as a two-time champion and knockouts champion in the last year. And basically every NXT wrestler except Asuka and Oba Femi have done the job on their way out of the territory. Asuka might have, we don't know, she got injured. Oba, bringing him up to fight Brock Lesnar, it made sense that you don't want him to lose right away. So Kendall needs to go over here, period. Over Lola would be weak, over JC would be strong. Over Lola in a play-in, and then JC consecutively, 2 wins on one show, would make her look like an Iron Woman. So if that is the booking, and that is the plan, then I will retract some of my takes about this not making a lot of sense, but that doesn't change the fact that this should have been announced on the end of NXT Tuesday night, or at least Wednesday. At some point inside 24 hours, there could have been a press conference, a statement, a video on social media, something like that. We should know 72 hours before NXT Stand and Deliver who is challenging for the women's title. So my prediction is Kendall going over. And if for some reason it is not her in this match, if it's JC and Lola, it's not a triple threat, it's not a one-on-one, whatever, then I would have JC retaining the title. And finally, the real main event, Sol Ruca against Zarya. Zaruka got in a tussle outside the arena at a hot dog stand in the city earlier in the day. They did not show a clip of this on NXT, which led me to wonder why. Why are you doing a pull-apart brawl in New York City? I understand you want the social media element. That's cool. It got used. But why aren't you then showing it on your TV? That was confusing to me. On the show, they got an extended retrospective showing the rise and fall of their partnership. It was exceptional. WWE does strong video packages. We all know this. This was better than most. It was seriously great. Still, I did find myself wishing it was longer, a little bit more detailed considering how long they had been partners and the depth of their story. The positioning coming out of it seemed to push Sol as the babyface and Zarya as the jealous tweener. Frustrating that they were not live on the go-home show, and it's actually ironic because that's what usually happens with the main event. You don't see them on the go-home. You see them on the show 2 weeks before, and they do a video package just like this. So they got the main event treatment, but they are not going on last at Stand and Deliver, despite, again, having an extended relationship, the best story by far, especially considering there is purposeful murkiness around their alignment, and the most hype on the entire show. Further surprising is that there is no stipulation for this match. This is a blood feud between them. These are best friends going crazy on each other. It makes me wonder whether this is not the blow-off, but just the first in a series of matches. And I could definitely see that. This could run from now until SummerSlam. You get the first match out of the way. They separate themselves a little bit. One of them wins the NXT Championship. And then by the time SummerSlam weekend rolls around, you have an NXT PLE before or after that. And then you get Sol against Zarya with the title on the line. Presumably at that point, Zarya wins and Sol goes up to the main roster. In terms of this match, it is tough to predict because we just don't know what's going to happen on the back end. Is Sol going to get called up? I have told you on this show about Sol just like I did Braun Breaker and Trick Williams and Roxanne Perez, and I think Tiffany Stratton maybe, but it was different circumstances with her. But all three of the other ones, Sol Ruca is not ready for the main roster. And you're going to say, Silver King, you're crazy. She's so over. Yeah, she is. It's not all about being over. It's about being ready to wrestle weekly on television, to be able to cut promos with not just confidence, but believability. We saw on their promo package 2 weeks ago, their promo segment, their one-on-one in the ring, we saw Zarya completely outclass her. Sol has not been given ample promo opportunity in the ring for what would be a main roster call-up. We also know that something NXT does with a lot of big-time baby faces on this brand is they turn them heel before they get called up. And it's not just because they want to see if they can do both. It's because they need the experience doing that at a lower level before they get onto the main roster where anything can happen at any time. With the snap of a finger, all of a sudden they may need a heel and they may need to turn someone. And if Sol Ruka's up there and she can't do it, that's problematic. So a lot of people believe that Zarya wins this match and Sol gets called up, and that's just the way it goes, or Sol even wins on her way out of the promotion, which would be horrific if that is what happened. I don't see it that way. I think Sol is going to be part of NXT for at least another few months into the summer. And if I had it my way, I've said this before, I think I'd keep her, I don't want to say another year, but I wouldn't call her up until the Oba, Javon, Trick window, where all three of those guys got called up around Royal Rumble time. That's what I would do. I'd keep her on this brand for a while, see what she can do with the main title, see what she can do as a heel, and give her ample promo time to really round out her game. Because when Sol Ruka gets called up to the main roster, you don't want there to be anything lacking. You want her all the way in because she has that kind of main event level potential where she can be a massive, massive star for WWE. And there is no reason to call someone up into that position until they are ready, which is precisely what I said about Javon Evans. I believe he should still be in NXT. He should be winning the title on this show. I'm glad that he has a match at WrestleMania and that he's over with the main roster fans. I don't even know that he has as much of his game to fill out as Sol does. He's much more complete than she is. But I made that case many times before that calling up Trick and Oba made all the sense in the world. Javon really should have had another year in NXT, but now we're getting completely off the point. Going to predicting this match. So whereas Sol needs all that kind of work, Zarya actually doesn't. But what has not happened with Zarya is she has never been the one featured. She was always second to Ruka in their tandem, both in kayfabe and reality. And her upside is massive. You saw it 2 weeks ago in the promo she cut head-to-head with Ruka. She outshined her, extremely confident on the mic, an incredible wrestler in the ring. She needs to be NXT champion at some point in 2026. And for me, this all has to start. Whether you make Zarya a pure heel, a tweener, you do a double turn to a degree and ensure that she's a babyface, this whole thing has to start with her winning this match. Otherwise, everything Sol said about her and the role that Zarya has been put in this entire time proves itself out. She isn't as good as Ruka. She is number 2. And if that's the case, then what is there for her to do in NXT if Sol was to leave or if Sol remains around there? So for me, it's a no-brainer. Even if she has to, I don't want to say cheat necessarily, but do something underhanded toward the end of the match to ensure that she wins and gets her moment, it's got to be Zarya over Sol Ruka. And I think NXT, Shawn Michaels and the creative team, I believe they understand that. I believe they've heard the crowd reaction, and I believe they go in that direction. So I do have Zarya beating Sol in the getting over main event, but most likely the co-main event of NXT Stand and Deliver. So that wraps up our ultimate preview. On the way out, we always give you a pre-show expectation grade, and we will do that once again. I will remind all of you listening, our Getting Overheads, you can vote and provide your pre and post-show grades on Twitter at Getting Overcast. We will post the first poll an hour before Stand and Deliver begins, the second poll immediately after the show goes off the air. You'll remember I did not have high expectations for Vengeance Day, and it completely exceeded them. I'm not going to make the same mistake this time. Plus, this card is way stronger than that. All 3 of the main women's matches have the opportunity to be phenomenal. The men's 4-way is going to be a great match, regardless of my positioning about its placement in the main event. It's going to be awesome. You have Johnny Gargano wrestling on the show. That's going to be great. Vanity Project Los Americanos should be great. And the opener should be a ton of fun. So I am really optimistic heading into Stand and Deliver. This might be the kick in the butt that NXT needs kind of coming out of WrestleMania, restarting their season for 2026. I'm going to go 92 A-. That's a pretty high grade for a pre-show expectation. This is going to deliver. And man, it has the potential to exceed that number. Still, I'm giving it room to fall below, still be an A-, B+. with relative ease. So that is the expectation grade for NXT Stand and Deliver. Again, you can vote, share your pre and post show grades on Twitter at Getting Overcast. In fact, this serves as a reminder for you. You can follow us across all of social media at Getting Overcast. You can follow us on Blue Sky as well, there and Twitter. You get episode drops, news, analysis, highlights. You can send in questions and comments for the show on YouTube. When you subscribe over there, you can listen to the podcast and watch full-length video interviews. If you skipped the Ricky Saints interview because you wanted to see it happen live, that will be up on Thursday. Don't forget, here at Getting Over,
It's all about Defy.
so head over to Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Leave a 5-star rating on Apple. Take a little extra time. Leave a 5-star written review. If you do, we will read it live right here on the show. And please remember,
I happen to love the number 5.
hope you do as well. $5 a month, $50 for the entire year. You can become an official Getting Overhead. Just visit buymeacoffee.com/gettingover. Sign up. You will get bonus audio, the fastest 5 minutes in professional wrestling, instant reactions to every major show, and exclusive news analysis posts every week. Please support us financially as we continue delivering ad-free, performance-enhancing audio into your ear holes. Don't forget, you already have a full, detailed WWE episode in your feed, a WWE AEW show coming up on Thursday, and your NXT Stand and Deliver instant analysis on the way Saturday night. At this point, though, it is time for the Silver King to sign off and leave you with just 3 final words. Bye for now.